Okay. My name is Lev Weitzman, and today I will be talking about the Persians. Alright. The Persians. The Persians were the successors to the Medes, who were an ancient Iranian people, and the Neo-Babylonians. Alright. King Cyrus was the first Persian king, and he was from the Median district of Fars, and he was technically an illegitimate prince, as he was a bastard. His grandfather was the Median king, and Cyrus hated him for it. The district of Fars was wealthy, as it was in the Zagros Mountains, so it had an abundance of food, and so it claimed independence. Though originally he was just a vassal king, and he was loyal to the Medians. He eventually went to the capital of Media and slaughtered his grandfather and his grandfather's closest advisors and officials. King Cyrus had successfully the first king's expanses. King Cyrus had successfully integrated Medes into his Persian kingdom. He had won the world's largest empires at his disposal. Media spanned across modern-day Turkey and Iran and shared its borders with the creators of coinage, Lydia. After his expanses in Media, he went after the Babylonians, who were south of the Median border. Both contributed to the fall of Assyria. They fell easily, and this marked the official ending of the Babylonian exile, which was a Jewish exile from Israel that the Neo-Babylonians enforced. Cyrus is praised in the Bible as a Messiah and the restorer of the faith, so it's safe to say that the Jews and the Persians had good relations. After that, he went on to Anatolia and conquered Lydia and Phrygia, so he controlled all of Anatolia. He made Croesus his advisor, for Croesus introduced the first coin, and Cyrus died with a vast empire that all depended on him. Cambyses II. A little picture there. Cambyses was the son of Cyrus and his successor, of course. He was named for his grandfather, who was the king of Anshan, another name for the district of Fars, but it was the name of the vassal kingdom before Cyrus had killed his grandfather, and was a great ruler. He was the head of the Babylonian affairs after the Persians conquered it, and relied heavily on his father, and rightfully so. All the major events during his reign were planned years before by Cyrus himself. Cambyses' expanses. The only true major expanse of his reign was the conquest of Egypt, which was planned decades before by his father. It was still an extravagant expanse, and how he orchestrated it meant the long-lasting campaign would only last a few years, but he still relied on his father, even when his father was 6 feet under, which is a little sad and pathetic, but, he was still a good king. Bardia, the imposter king. Bardia was the younger brother and successor of Cambyses II. He's often referred to as Smerides, as that is his Greek name. He didn't do much because he had a very short reign. It's thought that Bardia was actually a Zoroastrian high priest, and so a cousin of his, Darius, might have heard of him, pretty popular, murdered him out of part suspicion, part jealousy. This is it's part of a major conspiracy. Darius the Great. Darius was a cousin of Bardia, as I mentioned before, and was technically royal blood and wasn't a foreign ruler. He thought Bardia was a high priest and not a beloved cousin of his, so he murdered him. He helped solidify the Achaemenid Persian reign in a wary Median culture, and finished installing a strict Persian government. He was a brave soldier and commanded his armies on many of his planned campaigns. He also put down several satraps, which were Persian royal governors, because they were gaining traction and popularity as a rebel leader. Darius expanses. Darius was a fantastic general as well as a great bureaucratic and governmental leader, seeing as he was secular and conquered people's ways. He conquered Thrace and gained thousands upon thousands of pounds of gold from the Thracian gold mines. He also conquered parts of the northeastern Balkans, including Macedonia. He told his sons to scout the Athenian-influenced coast to learn about the culture and geography to protect Persian Anatolia from Greek influence and possible conquest. The fleet under Darius's son's supervision sank, and he laid off the Greek expeditions until the Athenians funded an Ionian revolt. This was the first Greco-Persian war, which the Persians lost, but they didn't lose any massive amount of territory, thankfully. Xerxes. Xerxes was the son of Darius and was the rightful successor. He was more of a religious extremist than his father and was more aggressive towards Egypt and Babylonia, who he didn't see as true Persians like his father did. He appealed to the classic Mede and Persian as he declared himself the divine leader of the Medes and Persians and was favored by Ahura Mazda and he claims that the ancient Median gods advised him and also favored him. It's also thought that he was the same Persian king as in the story of Purim, which was it still is a Jewish holiday. Xerxes' expanses. Xerxes didn't conquer a whole lot, but he sustained his territory even after the end of his father's war-torn reign. After Darius ended his round of revolts in Egypt and Babylonia and Bactria, and then several other satrapies, there was another round of revolts under Xerxes. Far less revolts that happened under Xerxes, but the Egyptian province revolted and gained lots of traction. But Xerxes repelled all the rebels and swooped on the Egyptians with far more severity than his father had used when he dealt with the Egyptian revolution. He had once again tried to conquer Greece and had led a campaign against Sparta and Athens. He was defeated at the Battle of Thermopylae, which was a horrible defeat because he had hundreds of thousands of soldiers and went against 300 Spartan soldiers plus over 6,000 other Greek warriors. But according to Herodotus, he had hundreds of thousands of troops, so should be a pretty easy win. Artaxerxes was the son of Xerxes, and mostly just sustained the empire of the founders of the Achaemenids. He was the third son of Xerxes, but the murder of Xerxes was fond of him, so he trained him to be king. Artabanus was the military commander who trained him, also the murderer of his father, and was a fantastic general. That's how he managed to kill Xerxes. Artaxerxes later killed him one-on-one in hand-to-hand combat, which I find impressive, seeing as he defeated a trained military leader. He, like most Persian leaders, encouraged religious freedom, and though officially he stayed neutral on his Jewish subjects, he was known to encourage Jewish religious leaders. Sorry. Artaxerxes' expanses. Artaxerxes sustained the peaceful empire that he dreamed of after his father's wars with Greece. He had to deal with his brother, however, who was the royal satrap of Bactria, which is in Central Asia, when he revolted. Bactria was both religiously important and hard to control, seeing it as it was near India on the more eastern side of Persia. He dealt with him with some struggle, but re-established peace in Bactria. Then he had to deal with the Egyptian rebels from his father's reign. He had his Syrian satrap re-establish peace there and solidified Persian reign in Egypt for several decades to come. Darius II Ochus. Darius II was the son of Artaxerxes and not really the rightful successor to the Persian Empire, but could technically fall under the rightful successor. The name Darius was a godly name, for Darius I was a great conqueror and loved by most. His real name was just Ochus, but when he ascended to the throne, he changed his name to Darius for political reasons. He toppled his half-brother's government and overthrew him and promptly killed him and some of his top officials. He, like many other Persian kings, got his start as a satrap and ruled a foreign province before his crowning of Shah, which is an Iranian king. Darius II Ochus' expanses. Darius had many attempts to influence the Ionian Islands, which had been under Athenian control since the Greco-Persian Wars, and was some of the small amount of territory that the Persians lost. They pitted Greek states against each other, allying themselves with Sparta instead of Athens in the Peloponnesian War. They defeated the Athenians at at Syracuse in 413 BCE and gained a foothold in the lost in the lost territory of the Ionian Islands. And he forced the Anatolian governors to collect overdue taxes, uh, suggesting that they had never lost Ionia and was at all points in time very much Persian. Shortly after the last Persian campaigns, Darius II died of an unknown ailment, ending his attempts to restore Persian supremacy over Athens. Artaxerxes II. Artaxerxes II was the son of Darius II and saw himself a restorer of the old Iranian faith and the Persian supremacy in the Aegean. The Persians ended their peace with Sparta and started warring with them and other autonomous city-states under their sphere of influence as they destabilized the Athenian reign. He tried and succeeded in restoring the Theban Persian lines, and together they warred with Sparta, and when Athens was made great again and their glory was reinstalled, they warred with them too. He also made some of the first depictions of gods in Persian culture, not of Ahura Mazda, but of the popular old Iranian Median faith. Artaxerxes II expanses. Artaxerxes, with the help of their Theban counterparts, once again were in the running for Aegean supremacy. He conquered a good amount of Balkan and Greek territory and made colonies in once independent Greek city-states, but he never managed Sparta or Athens. He was not a success compared to his predecessors, however. He did deal with Anatolian revolts oftenly, but every Persian king had to. But he lost Egypt to revolutionaries. After he did his dealings in the Aegean and Anatolia, he had to move most of the body of Persia's army to Sinai to try to campaign against Egypt. He lost most of the battles in both of his attempts of campaigns, and in his lifetime never conquered Egypt. Sorry. Artaxerxes III. Artaxerxes III was the son of Artaxerxes II and was a mean and cruel leader, but this made him also a great leader. He was like the rest of the Persian kings and satraps and hated Athens and forced them into submission with a peace treaty with all of their warlike neighbors. In his early years of reigning, he failed to puppet Egypt because he was angered at his father for losing it, and then let the unloyal states of Phoenicia and Cyprus know he was weak. He wasn't, though, and he solidified Persian reign once again in Cyprus and Sidon. Artaxerxes, as I said before, was an energetic general as well as a diplomatic genius. After he failed to puppet and eventually annex Egypt, Sidon, with the help of Bagoas, revolted with swiftness. Artaxerxes besieged Sidon and reconquered it and punished Bagoas. He from there launched a second campaign on Egypt, and unlike his father, succeeded in his clash with the pharaoh and reestablished the satrapies in Egypt. He rewarded Thebes by making the weakened Athens submit to them in a peace treaty. Artaxerxes IV. Artaxerxes was the only real son of Artaxerxes III and only ascended to kingship because Bagoas the eunuch murdered all of the other candidates, i.e. his brothers. The only option was Artaxerxes IV, whose Greek name was Arses. His reign was a short 2 years because Bagoas was upset with him and murdered him, and installed Artashata as the new king. Artaxerxes IV expanses. Artaxerxes was not a great general and wasn't a very inspired speaker, and so was more of a puppet of Bagoas in military terms. He launched a weak campaign when Philip of Macedon planned to invade Anatolia. He would be murdered if he did something that upset Bagoas, and things that were in the best interest of Bagoas were usually not in the best interest for Persia, so he didn't actually gain any territory in his reign, well, any major amounts of territory. Artashata / Darius III. Artashata, like Darius II, saw the merit in the name Darius, so he changed his name to Darius III. Darius III, like his father, was appointed to kingship by Bagoas, who later tried to poison him. According to myth, however, Bagoas was unsatisfactory with Darius III's reign, so he tried to make him drink poison. Darius tricked Bagoas and made Bagoas drink a cup of poison instead of drinking it himself. Darius III made several attempts to reconquer Anatolia, but Philip of Macedonia's son, Alexander, showed interest in conquering all of Persia on several different diplomatic summits. Artashata's expanses. Though Artashata wanted to, he never did conquer back Anatolia, and didn't gain any territory at all during his reign. Alexander, son of Philip, launched his attack in 334 BCE, and basically all hope was lost for the Persians. Alexander expressed his hatred for Darius III, and openly expressed that he would like to kill Darius III, as did several of the royal satraps who had a distaste for Darius III and Bagoas. Alexander hunted down Darius III all the way back to Bactria in Central Asia, where he was murdered. By not Alexander, but by Bessus, who was a royal satrap and related to Darius III. This allowed Alexander to annex all of Persia, ending the first dynasty of Persia. The Zoroastrian faith didn't allow the slave trade, and so the only slaves were prisoners of war from Central Asia and Aegean. Persia, since they annexed Thrace and Egypt and parts of Kush, were rich in gold and other precious metals. They had a major trade route throughout their empire called the Royal Road, which connected all the capitals and the major trade hubs and such. The Syrians also had royal roads, but they were more so for administrative reasons than for trade reasons. The New York's Postal Service slogan, "Nor rain nor darkness, nor snow nor sleet will stop them," actually refers to the Persian postal couriers on the Royal Road. And actually, fun fact, no postal service has a slogan. That's just something they decided to print on their buildings. Government of Persia. The Persian government was like a secular federal monarchy, with the king of Persia having the final say, but with different monarchs ruling each different state or province. The royal satraps took the place of these monarchs, and the different satrapies were ruled effectively in times of peace. But when the Persian king failed, the satrapies usually revolted. Of course, most of the time these revolutions failed. Though Persia was secular and Persepolis in the former Median Empire in Bactria, high priests and eunuchs were very powerful, and that's how Bagoas influenced Persia so much. The end. Thanks for watching.